Place 10 of the best real-time strategy games goes to Star Wars Empire at War, where you command or corrupt an entire galaxy in the definitive Star Wars strategy collection. It is a time of galactic civil war. Will you take up the reins of the rebellion, assume control of the Empire, or rule the Star Wars underworld? Empire at War finally delivers a truly satisfying Star Wars strategy experience. The gameplay is fast-paced and fun, with very little repetition, and fans of the setting will be amazed with the attention to details. Who would have guessed that some of the most seasoned real-time strategy veterans on the planet would take one of the most well-worn licenses in gaming and turn it into one of the most inventive game in years? The day-to-day ground conflicts that make up most of the game are not particularly inspiring. The full-on space wars are a real thrill to behold. As a strategy game, Empire at War delivers a true Star Wars experience. If you're into Darth Vader knocking over 20 soldiers with force push, or space battles thick with dozens of fighters swarming in between gargantuan capital ships, Empire at War will deliver all that in a fun, compelling package. Combined with a presentation that is as epic as the films that inspired the game and a slick dual-layered strategy design, Empire at War is easily recommendable to any strategy fan, especially those who are fond of George Lucas's space classic. It evokes all the charm and excitement of the childhood action figure wars that have been fought all across the nation over the last 30 years. When you add in the great sense of scale and the comprehensive roster of units available, Empire at War is like the ultimate digital toy box, at least for the original trilogy. Place 9 of the best real-time strategy games goes to Age of Empires II Definitive Edition. It celebrates the 20th anniversary of one of the most popular strategy games ever, with stunning HD graphics, a new and fully remastered soundtrack, and brand new content, The Last Cons, with 3 new campaigns and 4 new civilizations. There's clearly been plenty of love and attention given to the remastering of Age of Empires Definitive Edition, even if some of the less enjoyable elements of the original have also made it through the process unscathed. 20 years later, it still remains a hugely enjoyable RTS, and particularly thanks to its iconic soundtrack remains a joy to play, with hours disappearing as the eras pass you by. Age of Empires Definitive Edition manages to fulfill its function as a remaster. The graphics and the sounds are truly a delight, and there are some small playable improvements as well, but these are weighed down by the AI and a pathfinding system which still does not behave as well as it should. Overall, the return of one of the victors in the real-time strategy genre is a mix between nostalgic memories and learning how to manage your rage. The same problems that in 90s were the norm now are huge problems that can make you shout at your citizens. Gameplay-wise, the genre has seen a lot of improvements over the years, and the developers weren't bold enough to give a fresh start to the original title. Place 8 of the best real-time strategy games goes to Supreme Commander II, where you experience brutal battles on a massive scale. In Supreme Commander II, players wage war by creating enormous customizable armies and experimental war machines that can change the balance of power at any given moment. Take the role of one of the 3 enigmatic commanders, each representing a unique faction with a rich story that brings a new level of emotional connection to the RTS genre, or fight the battle online. A brilliant redesign of Supreme Commander's robot armies, ironically limited by a lack of artificial intelligence. It is challenging, refined and exciting. Just don't expect to tank rush your way through it. The AI could use a little boost, but the design itself is rock solid. This game is smaller, faster, focused mostly on multiplayer and user-friendlier than the first Supreme Commander. If you were not expecting a revolution and only a great game, you won't be disappointed. Whether you're a newcomer or a veteran tactician, you do well to overlook these flaws and enjoy Supreme Commander 2 for how entertaining and exciting it is. The game maintains a difficult balancing act, providing the scope and flexibility of the original Supreme Commander, with a user-friendly makeover that lends some freshness and personality. This is the kind of game where you glance at the clock and discover that hours have passed, and you're still waist-deep in assault bots and anti-air turrets. Place 7 of the best real-time strategy games goes to Northgard, which is a strategy game based on Norse mythology, in which you control a clan of Vikings fighting for the control of a mysterious newfound continent. It is a surprisingly great game. It will appeal both to fans of the Settler series and to enthusiasts of multiplayer strategies. Additionally, it sounds nice, looks decent, and it has a high replay value. Even the single-player campaign is well made and interesting. This game is a completely well-made indie building strategy game that doesn't have to hide from genre competition. It is a surprising, elegant RTS that's laden with a very dull story. Northgard is a must-play game for fans of the genre and could serve as a very good starting point for the newcomers who are just discovering RTS games for the first time. Veterans of the genre will love this mashup, but newcomers will buckle under the weight. It's an impressively well-made thing, a finely embroidered cloak of an RTS with all the elements sewn together in a pleasing and sensible way. Every game is fat with potential, helped in great part by a map generator that spits out a brilliant array of as good as bespoke battlefields. Northgard lives in the skirmish mode. The campaign mission design is good, but sometimes you just want to shake off the shackles and batter some Vikings in a sandbox. When all of the game's concepts collide, instead of being separated by levels, it becomes a tricky, unpredictable RTS that pulls you in all these different directions. Place 6 of the best real-time strategy games goes to Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War II, which is set in the World of Games Workshop's Warhammer 40,000 universe, with a dark, futuristic science fiction setting where armies of technologically advanced warriors, fighting machines and hordes of implacable aliens, wage constant war. Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War II delivers fast-paced RTS action with ferocious melee and ranged combat in fully destructible environments. The game immerses players in an in-depth non-linear single-player campaign and a fully cooperative multiplayer mode. A really fantastic game that will be able to fascinate old fans and also newcomers in the genre. On one hand, it's addictive, polished, satisfying and action-packed. On the other hand, the campaign lacks variety, and the metagame has no real bearing on anything. While the overall formula could still use some fine-tuning, the current product is one part hypercharged tactical combat, one part streamlined competitive RTS, and entirely worth playing. The single-player mashup of RTS and RPG elements works really well, and the multiplayer is fast and exciting. Relic's reinvention of the Dawn of War brand is a breath of fresh air. Dawn of War was a finely tuned game with huge battles and many disposable troops. Dawn of War 2 is faster, lighter, smaller, in some ways more interesting and in other ways somewhat lacking in its execution. But taken as a whole, it's impossible to not recommend the game to 40k fans, and to those who are willing to accept that this is not a linear sequel to an aging franchise.
Is ours, witch?
No, this planet is theirs.
Place 5 of the best real-time strategy games goes to Steel Division Normandy 44. This game is a tactical real-time strategy game that pits players against AI enemies in a single-player campaign or against several opponents in massive 10-on-10 multiplayer battles. This game succeeds both at being an entertaining real-time tactics game and a compelling simulation of historical combat, which is a remarkable combination. It's hard to remember the last time an RTS game was challenging with careful planning and the thrill of execution at the same time. Those only interested in a single-player affair might come away a little disappointed, but the package itself is very well-rounded and breathes some much-needed life into the genre. While the gameplay can feel rushed sometimes, Steel Division nevertheless is a great game that authentically recreates the World War II conflict and brings some new ideas to the real-time strategy genre. Steel Division Normandy 44 is a deep and complex wargame, enriched with many details, and set in some of the most beautiful maps ever seen in an RTS. It is a solidly enjoyable title that has balance issues that need patching, but otherwise a good investment for fans of the genre. Place 4 of the best real-time strategy games goes to Warcraft III Reforged, which is a reimagining of the real-time strategy game that laid the foundation for Azeroth's most epic stories. It is a remake featuring a thorough visual overhaul, a suite of contemporary social and matchmaking features, and more. Command the Night Elves, Undead, Orcs, and humans as alliances shift and armies clash in this timeless real-time strategy game. Warcraft 3 is still a really good game. The visual update Reforged brings to all its beloved and behated characters is all the reason you needed to want to experience it again. It's not perfect, and it's not everything we may have been promised, but it's still Warcraft 3. If you were judging it purely based on how good of a remaster it is, there's not much to write home about, and plenty of room for improvement. But taken as a whole, it's still a great game nearly 2 decades after its initial release. And the relatively minor shortcomings of this edition shouldn't stop you from returning to this classic Age of Azeroth or diving in for the first time. Had Reforged been an optional and free graphical update, undersold and understated and a gift to fans, I doubt there would be any backlash. Instead, Blizzard suggested a revolutionary reimagining of one of gaming's most popular titles, and failed spectacularly to deliver it. Warcraft 3 Reforged does not diminish the core experience that made the game great, but its relatively modest improvements are coupled with some missing features and technical issues that make it a disappointment. Overall, the remaster stays far below its possibilities and makes multiplayer worse than in the original. The single-player campaign is still great, and an exceptional real-time strategy game, let down by a very disappointing remaster.
Millennia ago.
The third place off the best real-time strategy games goes to Total War Warhammer 2, which is an innovative, original structure built on the solid foundations of the first game, has exceedingly succeeded. Who was afraid that its second Warhammer developers will lose their breath was terribly mistaken. It's easily one of the best Total War experiences yet, which in turn makes it one of the best RTS games available. This game is an amazing combination of Warhammer and Total War for all of us to enjoy for a long time. The areas in which Total War Warhammer 2 improves on its formula are plentiful, resulting in one best put-together Total War games to be released. While the fantastical Warhammer setting won't appeal to some, particularly a few of those who have enjoyed Total War's previous historical releases and were expecting more, it's wonderful to see the wonderful world of Warhammer come to love so expertly and vividly. The story and objective-driven campaign is a league above anything you've seen in the entire Total War series before, in both design and presentation. As an added bonus, you're able to play against the original Total War Warhammer factions in multiplayer and skirmishes if you own both games. There's also a new multiplayer mode that allows free-for-all battles involving more than 2 teams, which fits great with the general chaos and mayhem of Warhammer. With Warhammer 2, Total War doesn't reinvent anything so much as it iterates on the ideas that made the first so special. At its heart, there's still the marriage of Total War's big-scale strategy and Warhammer's precise tactical play. But, through 1,000 tiny tweaks, they've refined the experience into one of the most intriguing and exciting strategy games ever. The second place of the best real-time strategy games goes to Company of Heroes 2. It's a beautiful, gritty and spectacular strategy game, and while it doesn't do much particularly new, it doesn't have to. Online battles can be wonderful. Your decisions from the very beginning of a match can have far-reaching consequences, from the way you handle your engineer or pioneers, to your ability to get infantrymen into cover, to the effectiveness of your flanking maneuvers. Careful planning can culminate in a tense standoff at a single victory point, with your tank rolling in at the last minute to pick off the remaining enemy shock trooper vying for point control. But heartbreak also comes, often in the form of a flame-spewing half-track, capable of burning multiple squads to a crisp. Of course, such multiplayer mayhem recalls the original Company of Heroes' best moments, and you couldn't accuse the sequel of reaching the heights of the classic that spawned it. This familiarity is unlikely to breed much contempt, however, given Company of Heroes 2's consistent level of enjoyment. Its barrage of online and offline skirmishes doesn't always hit its mark. But when it finds its target, Company of Heroes 2 delivers a loud and mighty payload. This game is a shining example of what an RTS game should be. A mix of classic mechanics with new features and technology. It is curiously forgettable as single player, even though cliched horrors of war and overdose of fake accents try their best. As a multiplayer it shines, although beginners usually think otherwise. Overall, despite some minor misfires, the core gameplay is stronger than ever, and while it may not break the kind of new ground the original did, Company of Heroes 2 is still a terrific real-team strategy game, with a ton of content that no fan of the genre should miss. The first place of the best real-time strategy games goes to Starcraft II. By building off the foundations and bolstering the series with memorable missions, an incredible story, and awe-inspiring visuals, Blizzard has assured Starcraft II status as one of the best RTS games ever created. For anyone else interested in or already on board with real-time strategy games, Starcraft II isn't just an amazing game, it's the best of its genre. A satisfying and challenging campaign with great storytelling, fresh multiplayer experience with new units and balance changes. There is enough fun content here to keep RTS fans occupied for a long time. It has everything you expected it to have. Addictive gameplay, solid plot, great characters, Blizzard's trademark kick-ass cinematics, exciting campaign missions and a rich multiplayer package. Starcraft II was clearly built to run on all manner of PCs. Its system requirements are relatively low, and even at the highest settings. Yet, it sports a wonderful sci-fi look, and is filled with little details that constantly catch your eye. The campaign features a lovely variety of different environments, from tree-lined roadways stretching through green meadows, to the charred crust of once populated worlds. Units move with absolute fluidity, making the simple act of issuing orders a pleasure. Equally great sound effects augment the pleasure. The clicks and gurgles of the Zerg are appropriately repulsive, while the hums and buzzes of Prada structures and units are distinctive and satisfying. A ton of great RTS titles have released since StarCraft Brood War, but despite all the great campaigns we've played since then, StarCraft II still manages to make every mission feel exciting and fresh. Strangers to real-time strategy titles shouldn't be daunted by StarCraft II. The single-player campaign eases newcomers into the game gracefully, but still offers interesting twists for RTS veterans with unique objectives and special scenarios. The most dedicated players will further contribute to StarCraft II's longevity by using the included user creation tools to develop new maps, new modifications, and even entirely different kinds of games. There are a large number of custom maps and modes to download. But even without a burgeoning supply of user-created content, StarCraft II would stand on its own as a true gem, providing strategy veterans with a tournament-focused online package, while easing newcomers in with easier difficulty levels, offline challenges, and even a friendly introduction to competitive play.